Today we are going to start our cardiovascular system in our embryology. So first let us start with the development of heart. So we know heart is a mesodermal origin, that is it is mainly arriving from a splanchnopubic layer of a lateral plate mesoderm, if you remember. So from the lateral plate mesoderm of splanchnopubic layer, our mesodermal origin is a heart. So it is cranial to the procaudal plate. So we know procaudal plate. So cranial to it, actually first the heart develops. It is in the form of tube. Here you can see how it is a tubular structure, and later the mesoderm in the cardiogenic area is closely related to the pericardial cavity, and this pericardial cavity is mainly originated from the intraembryonic mesoderm. So you know intraembryonic mesoderm gives rise to our body cavities like pleural cavity, pericardial cavity, peritoneal cavity. So if you remember, pericardial cavity is in the cranial part of our horseshoe shaped embryo. So the pericardial cavity is mainly derived from a intraembryonic coelom, and the mesoderm gives rise to cardiogenic area. This we need to remember. So actually first what happens is, you can see here the two buds, right side and left side endothelial heart tubes are formed, and these are fused together and they form some dilatation. So you can see some dilatations are formed, and later what happens is these dilatations are divided into bulbous cordis and the primitive ventricle, primitive atrium, and also into sinus venosus. This is the venous end, and this bulbous cordis is towards the atrial end. So this is the arterial end, and this is the venous end. So this bulbous cordis is at the arterial end, and it is further divided into proximal part, middle part, and also distal part. So we'll see it in the next diagram. So this is the arterial end about our bulbous cordis. So it is divided into our proximal part, middle part, and distal part. So the proximal part is first dilated, and the middle part forms a conus. So you can see this is the middle part which forms the conus. The first part forms a truncus arteriosus, and you can see the distal part which is 1/3, which this is the distal part. Distal part forms a truncus arteriosus, middle part forms conus, and the proximal part is first dilated part. It is not given any name. It is 1/3 dilated, middle. This is the distal. So distal is a truncus arteriosus. It is also associated with the aortic arch. If you see here, this is the first arch artery and the dorsal aorta. So this truncus arteriosus is associated with the aortic arch distally, and it is also related with the right and left pharyngeal arch arteries. I can see here the first arch arteries is first pharyngeal arch artery, and this arch move backward as right and left dorsal aorta. So right and left dorsal aorta, you can see this is the dorsal aorta, right and left dorsal aorta. So this is about our bulbous cordis. And next we have the ventricle part, and next after ventricle we have atrium. Actually ventricle and atrium, so this ventricle and atrium are connected by the atrioventricular canal in the middle. So this is atrioventricular canal between the atrium and the ventricle. And next this is at the venous end. So at the venous end we have our sinus venosus. You can see here this is the sinus venosus, and it has two horns, like right horn and left horn. Here you can see it clearly, right horn and left horn. And these are further divided into, you can see this is the right common cardinal vein which forms a part of superior vena cava, and the right umbilical vein later disappears, and the right vitelline vein forms a inferior vena cava, and left horn actually completely regress. The left horn of the sinus venosus retrogress, so the remnant forms a part of coronary sinus. So once we'll understand this diagram clearly, so that we'll get a very clear idea. So before that, I also wanted to say about sinus venosus some important points, like from where the vitelline vein. Actually the vitelline vein comes from the yolk sac, and the umbilical vein mainly, maybe it right umbilical or left umbilical, they arise from the placenta, and common cardinal vein mainly arise from the body wall. So these all join together and form each horns in the case of either left horn or also right horn. So once we'll understand this diagram. So this is how the heart tube looks like, and here we have the distal 1/3 which forms truncus arteriosus, forms the ascending aorta and also pulmonary trunk. Actually here the spiral septum comes and it divides the truncus arteriosus into the ascending aorta and also pulmonary trunk. And the middle 1/3 is the conus, which mainly forms the outflow tracts. That is, you know, outflow tracts are aorta and also our pulmonary arteries. So these are the outflow tracts which are mainly formed from the middle conus, and the proximal part forms the primitive right ventricle. So remember that right ventricle is formed from the proximal 1/3 of the bulbous cordis. And next we have the primitive ventricle. So In between this ventricle and our bulbous quadratus, we have a sulcus called as bulboventricular sulcus. So this ventricle mainly forms our left ventricle, that is the trabeculated part. And between the ventricle and atrium, we have the atrioventricular canal, and the atrium is giving rise to both left atrium and right atrium. Primitive atrium is partitioned to form the right and left atrium, And next, this is a body of the sinus venosus is absorbed into the right atrium and forms a smooth part. And next, this is the sinus venosus. The right horn of sinus venosus is absorbed. Even the right horn of the sinus venosus is also absorbed into the right atrium. And this is the left horn with regress. So we have discussed this in a detail. Now we will understand in detail about formation of atria. So actually the sinus venosus, so if you remember, this is the sinus venosus, right? So the sinus venosus and the primitive atrial chamber, these both are narrow, having a narrow opening and shift towards shift from right and left, shift towards the right, and right and left venous valves are also formed. Actually what it means is, first you can see this is a SA orifice, sinoatrial orifice. It moves towards the right side. So you can see this is the right side, this is the left side. So first it's like a central structure, next it moves towards the right side. And next here also you can see first it is like a transverse structure, now it is become oriental structure, vertical structure. And now you can see this is the septum spurium which is formed, and this is the left venous valve, and this is a right venous valve. So the left and right venous valve are formed on either side of this septum spurium, and this is the SA node orifice. And next, even our atrioventricular cushions are also starting developing on the dorsal and ventral walls. So they fuse together to form the septum intermedium. So here you can see separate right and left AV orifices separated by the cushions. So later they fuse together to form a septum intermedium. So septum intermedium is formed between the atrium and our sinus venosus. This is the site where our cushions, AV orifices, right? Separate right and left AV orifices created by the cushions. So these cushions are formed here, and our septum intermedium is also formed between atrium and ventricle. But our right horn, that is also SA node, is also getting absorbed into the atrium. So if you remember, in adult also we have SA node or SA orifice in the atrium, but its ends are only having the septum spurium and also left venous valve, and here right venous valve. Now let's start our discussion about a formation of interatrial septum. So first the septum primum forms. As we have already discussed here, the septum intermediate is formed because of fusion of AV cushions, and the septum primum starts growing towards the septum intermedium. Before joining the septum intermedium, it forms a small hole like structure. It is called as septum primum. That is called as foramen primum. And after the foramen primum is formed, later it gets fused, and upper one small structure is formed, opening is formed, that is called as foramen secundum. So you can see all those structures. So first this septum primum is trying to reach the septum intermedium and forming middle foramen, that is called as foramen primum. And later what happens is the septum primum fuses with the intermediate septum, and upper a gap forms, that is called as foramen secundum. This foramen secundum remains, and next the septum secundum starts growing. As the septum secundum starts growing towards the septum intermedium, even there a small gap is formed. This is called as foramen ovale. So foramen ovale is nothing but the passage of blood from right atrium to the left atrium by means of this hole in the hole in the septum secundum, and also in the this foramen secundum. So by this the blood can easily pass. And even one more thing is that this as we remember, this is the septum spurium and left valve. So these also get attached to this septum secundum while formation of this interatrial septums. So this is how interatrial septums are formed. So in adults, actually the annulus ovalis represents the lower free edge of the septum secundum. So we know what is the septum secundum. So here we have the septum secundum. So this septum secundum in adults, it becomes the annulus ovalis, and while the fossa ovalis represents the septum primum. So where is that septum primum? This is the septum primum, which in adults it represents as a fossa ovalis. Now let us move on to development of right atrium. Actually, right atrium is derived from the right half of the primitive atrium, as we know, and the sinus venosus is also absorbed into the right atrium by enlarging the by enlargement of SA orifice. We know that. And also the right half of atrioventricular canal is absorbed into the right atrium, and the left horn of sinus venosus mainly forms the coronary sinus. So you can see this is the left horn which forms the coronary sinus, and a right common cardinal vein is leading to formation of superior vena cava, and our coronary sinus vena cava open into mainly our atrium, and the right margin of SA orifice, that is the right venous valve, expand and divides into three parts, that is right venous valve forming the crista terminalis, and also it forms a valve of inferior vena cava and also forms a valve of coronary sinus at the junction of right atrium from the sinus venosus and also atrium proper. These all structures are formed. So once let us check out this diagram and understand everything. So this is right vitelline vein, right common cardinal vein, right horn of sinus venosus, left common cardinal vein, left horn of sinus venosus, and this is the sinoatrial guarded by the right and left venous valves. It is entering into this, and this is the atrial septum formed. This is the right atrium. So this is how the right atrium is formed, and here the terminal part of inferior vena cava from the right vitelline vein. Sinus venosus is also absorbed into right atrium. Coronary sinus is formed from the left horn of sinus venosus and left common cardinal vein, and left venous valve is fused now with the atrial septum, and the right venous valve is forming a crista terminalis, and this is the right atrium. This is superior vena cava from the right common cardinal vein. So now once let us understand this diagram. So you can see this is the right venous valve, this is the left venous valve, and this is the opening of sinus venosus into right atrium at this position. And here we can see this is the opening of the superior vena cava. This is the right venous valve is now greatly expanded, and the superior limbic band is passing here, and this is the opening of the inferior vena cava. This is the inferior limbic band, and this is the opening of the coronary sinus. This is the left venous valve. So you can see how much the left venous valve is not that much expanded, but the right venous valve is lot of expanded to enter all these structures. So this is now forming the crista. So the right venous valve now forms the crista terminalis, and now this is of course this is same from before. That's the opening of superior vena cava. This is the left venous valve which is now fused with the atrial septum, and this is the opening of a coronary sinus. This is the valve of coronary sinus, inferior limbic band, valve of inferior vena cava, opening of inferior vena cava, and this is a superior limbic band. Now let us see the development of left atrium. Actually, left atrium is also derived from the left part of the primitive atrial chamber and also from the left half of the atrioventricular canal, and this is mainly absorbed the proximal pulmonary veins. So what is this absorption of pulmonary veins? Now let us check out in this diagram. So this is the left atrium and this is the pulmonary vein. So how the pulmonary vein is absorbed into left atrium, let us see step by step. So this is the wall of the atrium which is mainly derived, derived from the absorbed vein. So by the absorption of this pulmonary vein only the left atrium wall is also formed, and this is the left pulmonary vein, and these are the left pulmonary veins, and these are the right pulmonary. At first only the left pulmonary veins are open, but later two right and two left pulmonary veins are opened into our left atrium. Now we are in the discussion of development of ventricles. So we know bulbocordace region. This bulbocordace region has three parts: proximal, middle, conus. Yeah, we already know distal truncus arteriosus. So this distal truncus arteriosus is having a spiral septum. So we can see that spiral septum over here, and this spiral septum divided into the ascending aorta and also pulmonary trunk. So you can see this is the aorta and this is the pulmonary trunk which is divided by the spiral septum, and it is mainly formed by the right superior and the left inferior truncus swellings or cushions. So because of this cushions they are divided like this, and the lower end it forms a pulmonary trunk ventral to the aorta. So it forms a pulmonary trunk lower ventral to the aorta, and left side there is orientation of the spiral septum. And next the conus. The conus are the outflow parts, as we already discussed. The conus forms the mainly outflow parts for both ventricles, and the bulboventricular cavity have the dilated lower part which mainly communicate with the atria, and the conical upper part which communicate with the truncus arteriosus. So what they are saying, the bulboventricular cavity, the bulboventricular cavity mainly have the dilated lower part which communicate with the atrium. So the lower part communicates with the atrium, and the conical upper part communicate with the truncus arteriosus. So this is a conical upper part which mainly communicate with the truncus arteriosus, and this is the lower part communicating with the atrium. You can see this atrium, lower part communicating, upper part communicating with the truncus arteriosus. And the part 1, this is mainly from the proximal 1/3 of the bulbus cordis and also from the primitive ventricle. This is very important because we know primitive ventricle gives rise to left ventricle, right? Because proximal 1/3 of our bulbar cordis only gives rise to right ventricle. So part 2 is mainly derived from the conus. So part 1 is from the proximal 1/3 of bulbus cordis and also primitive ventricle. Means now they are going to form our right and left ventricles, because proximal 1/3 of bulbus cordis is forming right ventricle and primitive ventricle is forming left ventricle. So this both form, this part 1 is now going to form the ventricle, and this part 2 is from the conus. So we know conus is giving outflow tracts, that is our aorta and also pulmonary trunk. So this is how now our heart tube is now going to change into the real adult form of heart. So this is the right atrioventricular orifice, and this is the fuse AV cushion. So now here it forms a intermediate septum, and this is the left AV orifice, and this is the right atrioventricular orifice, that is now between the atrium and ventricle. Now we'll try to understand the formation of interventricular septum. So till now we understood how ventricle is formed. Now let us see the septum, how between right ventricle and left ventricle our septum forms between them. So the cavity is formed after the conus and proximal 1/3 of bulbus cordis are merged to the primitive ventricle, that is right half and left half. So you can see this is a proliferation from the AV cushion, spiral septum, bulbar septum, and this is the interventricular septum now where it is going to form. So the interventricular septum mainly grow upward from the floor of the bulboventricular cavity and divides the lower dilated part of the cavity into the right and the left half, and it meets with the fused atrioventricular cushions. So we know we have intermediate fused cushion. So now this grows like this and fuses with them and later divides the ventricle into right side and left side. And the external surface is mainly formed by the formation of the interventricular septum corresponds to the bulboventricular sulcus, and the right and left bulbar ridges arise in the bulboventricular cavity, which are derived from the conus and move towards the other end and fuse to form the bulbar septum. So they also form a bulbar septum towards the other end. This grow downwards the interventricular septum. So the bulbar septum grows downwards of a interventricular septum. After this discussion we will check out this labeling. So the gap between the upper edge of the interventricular septum and the lower edge of the bulbar septum is filled by the proliferation of atrioventricular cushions. And internal surface of the heart is mainly lined by the endothelium, endoderm, muscle, connective tissue are of mesodermal origin, and the splanchno-puric mesoderm of the dorsal side of the pericardial cavity forms the thick myoepithelial mantle which surrounds the heart tube and give rise to the myocardium and also to the epicardium, that is the visceral layer of the pericardium. So epimyocardial mantle, that is nothing but, and the parietal layer of the pericardium forms the somatopleuric mesoderm. It is from the parietal layer of pericardium is mainly from the somatopleuric mesoderm. So once we'll see this labeling to understand it clearly. So this is a spiral septum, this is a bulbar septum, this is a proliferation from the AV cushions. So proliferation from the AV cushion forms the intermediate septum, and this is the outflow part of the right ventricle from the conus, trabeculated part of the right ventricle from the dilated part of bulbus cordis, and this is a trabeculated part of left ventricle from primitive ventricle, and this is the outflow part of the left ventricle from the conus, which I have said before about this interventricular septum. Once let us check out by this diagram. We know our trilaminar disc, ectoderm, middle mesoderm and lower endoderm. So the heart tubes are here, which are endodermal structures. So this is the pericardial cavity in the cardiogenic area. This is of mesodermal in origin. Here we know upper we have amniotic cavity, and this is a somatopleuric mesoderm. We know lateral plate mesoderm is divided into somatopleuric mesoderm and also splanchno-pleuric mesoderm. So this is splanchno-pleuric. And now what happens? We'll see here. Foregut, heart tubes, pericardial cavity is formed from the intraembryonic coelom, and this is planktopleuric mesoderm, this is somatopleuric mesoderm. So both are lining the pericardial cavity. So this is the foregut. Now the heart tubes, we said both endodermal heart tubes are fused over here, and this is forming the myoepicardial mantle. This is the somatopleuric mesoderm, this is the pericardial cavity. So now finally how it has changed, we can see. This is the dorsal mesoderm, sorry, dorsal mesocardium. This is the heart tube, endocardium. This is the myocardium, epicardium. So the layers of exterior layers of the heart are starting forming. This is the pericardial cavity surrounding it around, and this is the fibrous pericardium, you know, the lining, and this is the parietal serous pericardium. So now we have like formed almost every structure of heart. So here lies the mesocardium, septum transversum. We know septum transversum gives rise to liver and also our diaphragm. This is the heart tube now, pericardial cavity. So there is hole in the mesocardium, and here you can see this is the truncus arteriosus, bulboventricular loop, and here we have atrium, sinus venosus, ventricle, transverse sinus of pericardium, conus. So all those parts we know already, these things. Now let us check out the exterior of the heart, how it is formed. Actually, exterior of heart is suspended from the dorsal wall of the pericardial cavity by two layers of pericardium, mainly known as dorsal mesocardium. And the tube grow rapidly, folded itself to form a U-shaped bulboventricular loop. So thus you can see the U-shaped bulboventricular loop. And next, the S-shaped heart tube is formed, that is mainly by bulbocordis, and the ventricle are separated by the bulboventricular sulcus. So next it becomes shallower, and the conus is associated with the proximal bulbus cordis, and the ventricle come to form one chamber along with the truncus arteriosus. So now we'll see the fate of sinus venosus. So actually the right side becomes shallower and left side becomes very deep and also reduced inside, and it is now completely separated from the atrial chamber, and right side its blood enters the atrium, and the SA node is right side now, and the orifice is vertical. So interatrial septum, we know the lower edge of septum secundum is forming the crista dividens, that is thick and firm, and the upper edge of septum primum is lower boundary of the foramen secundum, thin, mobile like a hap. It's now like mobile flap, and the membranous part of the intraventricular septum is divided into the anterior part, which separates the right and left ventricles, and the posterior part, which mainly separates the left ventricle from the right atrium, and it is also called as atrioventricular septum. And the anterior part is from proliferation of endocardial cushions, and the interatrial and the ventricular septa don't meet, so the atrioventricular cushions in the same line. That is important. Now let us see the valves of the heart. So we know we have mitral and tricuspid valve, which are mainly formed by the proliferation of the connective tissue under the endocardium of the right and left atrioventricular canals. So there are pulmonary aortic valves, which are mainly derived from the endocardial cushions, which are formed mainly at the junction of the truncus arteriosus and the conus. So the pulmonary valve lie ventral and left to the aortic valve, and the pulmonary trunk have one posterior and two anterior, and the aorta have one anterior and two posterior. The connecting system, you know, SA node is a caudal part of the left tube. After the fusion in the stress venosum, it is incorporated into right atrium near opening of the SVC, that is superior vena cava, and the AV node and the AV bundle form in the left wall of the sinus venosus and also in the AV canal, atrioventricular canal. So after the absorption, the AV node comes to lie at the interatrial septum. So now we'll check out the pericardial cavity. So the pericardial cavity is mainly derived from the intraembryonic coelom, that is mainly in the midline and also cranial to the procaudal plate, and this lies on the ventral side of the embryo, that is the heart tube invaginates from the dorsal aspect, and the parietal layer of the serous pericardium and the fibrous pericardium are mainly from the somatopleuric mesoderm lining the ventral side of the pericardial cavity, and the visceral serous pericardium is derived from the splanchnopleuриc mesoderm, which lines the dorsal side of the pericardial cavity, and it disappears, dorsal mesocardium disappears, and the visceral and parietal layers of the pericardium continues only at the atrial and the venous ends of the heart tube. So when folding takes place, the arterial and venous end come closer, and space between them is called transverse striatus of pericardium. And the oblique sinus of the pericardium is formed by the isolated pouch of pericardium along with the four pulmonary veins. So let us see some congenital anomalies, that is dextrocardia reversed, that is in condition, that is situs inversus, and the ectopic cordis, that is heart is exposed to the chest seen from the outside, and the defect in the development of the chest wall. Atresia or stenosis, that is a narrow orifice stenosis or none, it is not present in atresia. Aortic or pulmonary, then may be supravalvular or subvalvular stenosis, and in pulmonary stenosis the foramen ovum and the ductus arteriosus may be patent in the aortic stenosis, and abnormal growth like accessory cusps are present in walls. Congenital tumors may be formed. Left atrium partially subdivided by the transverse septum. Myocardium is poorly developed, causing hypoplasia, and there may be defective formation of septa like abnormal passages, interatrial septal defect where the septum primum failed to reach the atrioventricular cushion, so the foramen primum is patent, or still the ostium primum is defect, so also formed by the abnormal AV endocardial cushions. And next one is septum secundum failed to develop, so the foramen secundum is wide open and the ostium secundum, this is called as ostium secundum defect. And the oblique valvular passage between the primum and the secundum patent, so that is called patent foramen ovale. The probe can be passed, so it is called as probe potency, but no shunt is present. And premature closure of ovale before the birth, and right atrium and ventricle undergo hypertrophy, and left side is underdeveloped. So interventricular septal defect in the membranous or muscular part, most common congenital anomalies. And the defects of the spiral septum, completely absent patent truncus arteriosus, partially absent shunt between the aorta and the pulmonary trunk. Atrioventricular canal defect or persistence of AV canal. So there is abnormal AV cushions. All four chambers in the intercommunicate, and if the end cushions are tutor to the right, if they move to the right, the tricuspid atresia, there is high in right atrium, foramen ovale fails to cross. And defective septa, two chambers of the heart are auricular common AV. Three chambers of the heart are corticular, then one ventricle, two atria, or one atrium or two ventricle, that is corticular biventricular. And next we have the combined defects, like two or more defects may coexist, like phallosterology where there is interventricular defect, aorta is overriding, three upper edge of ventricular septum, there is pulmonary stenosis, hypertrophy of the right ventricle. And other defects are like pericardium may be partially or completely absent, there may be congenital defects in conducting system of heart, or transposition of great vessels like aorta from the right ventricle and pulmonary trunk is arising from the left ventricle. And there may be tossing Bing syndrome, like aorta is towards the right ventricle and pulmonary trunk override both the right and left ventricle. And there may be interventricular septal defects, and also IVC, SVC end in the left atrium. Pulmonary vein may end in the right atrium or in one of the tributaries. And also there may be first arteries to appear in the embryo like primitive aorta. So this it is like a readout because it is very big chapter. You can understand it by means of diagrams. So now we will discuss the diagram and complete our discussion, and later we'll start with our pharyngeal arch, arteries. Those will be again in a detailed explanation, because that is important point we need to explain. So once we'll see this labeling. So we know this is bulboventricular sulcus, this is the atrium, ventricle, sinus venosus, conus, lower membrane. So this is how left atrium is formed finally. Pulmonary trunk, aorta, right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. So this is, you can see, retrogression of left horn of sinus venosus here, atrium, left horn, body of sinuses. This is first in the initial. Later you can see the left horn is getting retrogress. So opening from the atrium to the sinus venosus only to the right is now persistent. So opening becomes narrow and it is guarded by the right and left venous valves. So the left horn is now a tributary of the right horn. So this you can see here, septum secundum, septum primum, fused AV cushion, septum intermediate is formed, proliferation from the AV cushions joining the interventricular septum, two components that form the membranous part of interventricular septum. So the membranous part of interventricular septum is formed from the septum intermedium, and the muscular part is formed from the floor of this bulbous part. So right atrium, left atrium. So you can see the posterior, anterior aortic valve, pulmonary valves. So pericardial cavity is the arterial end of heart tube. This is the mesocardium, venous end of heart tube. So this is a parietal pericardium, line of reflection of visceral pericardium. This transverse sinus, cuttage of pericardium, truncus arteriosus, sinus venosus, transverse sinus is between them. So here you can see the four pulmonary veins: superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, aorta, pulmonary trunk, line of the reflection of visceral to parietal pericardium. So this is a parietal pericardium, left pulmonary veins, pulmonary trunk, aorta, superior, inferior vena cava, right pulmonary veins. And this is how dextrocardia is what in a reverse side the chambers and the large blood vessels show right to left reversal. So actually they're reversed. We can also call it as situs inversus. So superior vena cava is now here, aorta. Actually, they should be like this, right? But now they're reversed. Inferior vena cava is over here, apex is here, like this. And this is a patent truncus arteriosus. The ascending aorta and pulmonary trunk are represented by a single channel that open into both ventricles. So right ventricle, left ventricle, aorta and pulmonary trunk represented by a common channel. See, there is no separation between them. And this is the type of aortic stenosis. So first one is valvular, second one is supravalvular, third one is infravalvular. That is below the valve, above the valve, and this is exactly on the valvular side. So they are looking like tooth-like structures, but they are like septal defects. So first one you can say the septum primum defect. Second one is the septum secundum is not close. C is, you can see, patent foramen ovale. Even in adults sometimes foramen ovale may be patent. And D, you can see this is the interventricular septal defect. The ventricle septum is not formed properly. So these are four features that constitute the phallus of teratology: narrow pulmonary trunk, aorta overriding the ventricular septum, interventricular septal defect is present, and there is hypertrophy of the wall of right ventricle. So teratology of Fallot can be studied well in our pathology. So now we are coming into a main part, that is our vascular system, and later we'll discuss the fetal circulation. So actually a cardiovascular system is mainly developed from both intra and extra embryonic mesoderm. Intraembryonic mesoderm, that is between ectoderm and endoderm, and extra embryonic mesoderm also, as we already discussed before. So now I don't want to go there. So now arterial system, our vascular system is divided into arterial, venous system. Later we'll discuss fetal circulation. So arterial system, mainly in the extra embryonic mesoderm, the blood vessels form at the stalk, chorionic area, and also around the yolk sac. So if you take from our splanchnic layer, actually with of mesodermal cells, they form a mesenchymal cells, a mast-like structure. So these cells have outer cells and inner cells. Outer cells lead to formation of angioblasts, which mainly forms the blood vessels, that is endothelial cells, and the inner cells mainly produce the blood cells. These blood cells are called hemocytoblasts, which give rise to RBC, WBC, platelets, so all this process. So these are called as blood island cells, because like inside they have some cells and outside, so they are like island cells. So the first process is called as vasculogenesis, that is how the blood vessels are formed from the mesodermal cells. So how the mesodermal cells give rise to outer cells which form the blood vessels. So this process is called vasculogenesis. And the second process is called angiogenesis. That means now this vessel is formed, right? But actually vasculogenesis means how the mesodermal cells are forming one vessel, that is vasculogenesis. Angiogenesis means from this formed vessel, now how many sprout outs, that is how many other vessels are formed, that is called as angiogenesis. So we know our arterial system is having pharyngeal arches and also connected with the rest of the body. So first we need to understand it, like as we already discussed the heart tube. Now we know that truncus arteriosus, and above we have the aortic sac, and backside of that we have both dorsal aorta. Actually later the dorsal aorta fused to form only one dorsal aorta, but at this stage we have two dorsal aortas, and besides this we have also our pharyngeal arches, are also called as bronchial arches. So this from the aortic sac, actually the blood branches to the this pharyngeal arches, and later it connects with the dorsal aorta backside. So the flow of blood would be like from aortic sac to the pharyngeal arches, and from pharyngeal arches into the dorsal aorta. So again they meet up in the dorsal aorta at the back, and actually this fuse up to form a descending aorta. Actually this both dorsal aorta, as I said, they fuse later, so both of them fuse together to form a descending aorta at the level of T4 vertebra. So that we need to remember, and these are called as aortic arches. So what are aortic arches mainly? They take the blood from the aortic sac, pass it from the pharyngeal arches, and meet up at the dorsal aorta. So this is nothing but called as aortic arch. So now let us see which arch is related with which structure. So the first arch mainly related with the maxillary artery, second arch with the hiatal artery and stapedius artery, and the third arch with the carotid artery, internal carotid artery. So you can remember, like, first one is maximum, so maxillary, second one, second S, so stapedius, and third one, what is third letter in our alphabet, that is alphabet, like carotid C, so carotid, internal carotid, and fourth arch giving rise to our right subclavian artery and also aortic component of the ductus arteriosus, and also to the aortic arch. And fifth arch, we know it degenerates, and the sixth arch is mainly for pulmonary components of ductus arteriosus, and this sixth arch is also divided into again right and left part. Right actually degenerate, and its distal part also degenerate, go around the right subclavian artery to the fourth arch, and the sixth arch, left one, mainly forms the pulmonary artery and also ductus arteriosus. So after the birth, we know ductus arteriosus is converted into ligamentum arteriosum. So this ductus arteriosus is supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. It go around this and later forms the ligamentum arteriosum. So now the vagus branches are giving to the sixth arch is associated to developing larynx, and also the arterial system descend downward and the nerves also go downward. So the vagus make mainly the recurrent laryngeal nerve. And sometimes the right side, the dorsal aorta may persist and circle around the esophagus and also trachea, and causing dysphagia, problems in swallowing and also breathing aid. Sometimes there is dyspnea. So this is how the adult system looks like, but of course there is no ductus arteriosus at the time. So this is right pulmonary, left pulmonary arteries. This is the ductus arteriosus giving a connection between the pulmonary arteries and the aortic arch, and this is the left subclavian vein, this is the right artery, this is the external carotid and the internal carotid. So this is all about like how the vessels are formed, how angiogenesis takes place. Now let us see one example here, coarctation of aorta. It is mainly distal to the left subclavian. This coarctation of aorta, I think this is not needed now. We can discuss it in pathology in detail. Now let us see some of the branches, the arteries, what it becomes later. So they form the posterior lateral branches which go to the all over the body, like intercostal arteries, lumbar arteries, and the lateral branches go to the kidney, gonads, adrenal, and form their respective arteries. For example, kidney, renal, gonadal, gonadal arteries in male. Or testicular arteries, or those all adrenal arteries, all those. And the ventral bulge mainly give rise to vitelline arteries from the yolk sac, and the celiac artery supplies foregut, superior mesenteric to midgut, inferior mesenteric to hindgut. And here they form the common iliac arteries, and they also form the superior vesical arteries and the internal iliac arteries. These are originally the umbilical arteries and go to the umbilical cord, and after the birth they form the medial umbilical ligament in the anterior abdominal wall in adults, and the superior vesicular artery actually supplies the bladder. This is also part of a medial umbilical ligament, that is our internal iliac artery, and the external iliac artery gives rise to mainly supply the lower limbs. So now let us move on to venous system. So venous system, we have mainly all the structures from which the venous system develops is, first one, yolk sac gives rise to vitelline veins, that is both right and left, and the placenta gives rise to umbilical cord, umbilical venous system. This is also two, right and left. And throughout the body we have the cardinal system. This is also right and left, anterior and posterior, which form the sinus venosus and also common cardinal vein. So all these collected at the sinus venosus around the 4th and 5th week of our development. So actually we need to understand this diagram. This is the anterior cardinal vein, this is the posterior cardinal vein, in middle both together form the common cardinal vein, and here we have the umbilical veins, and we have the in middle, more medially we have the vitelline veins. So after understanding this, let us see. So left of the sinus venosus, left part of the sinus venosus degenerate, and only the right part is remained. It is sinus venosus is asymmetrical. Initially they have right and left parts, but later the left degenerates, and later on the right half only remain. So at the septum transversum, even the liver development also, the vitelline veins pass by the liver and break down now into the sinusoids and recollect together and go out as hepatic cardinal channels into the right and left and go to the right side of the sinus venosus. And next what happens is they fuse later to form the portal vein, having arterial supply, splenic and a superior mesenteric veins together form the portal vein. And GIT, it's of having capillaries, and also between two capillaries if you find a vein, that is called as portal vein, because it's between two capillaries. It's a rare, it's not normal, because we know in any capillary we have one side vein, one side arteries, but here two sides capillaries in between, then it is portal vein. So next, it opens into the right cardiac channel, and both side right side degenerate, not right side, left side degenerate or connect to the right side, and finally form the inferior vena cava. So this is how inferior vena cava is formed when this veins, mainly the vitelline vein. So the vitelline vein passing through the liver and making the sinusoids, going into the hepatocardiac channels. Finally the left part is degenerating, only right part is remaining, and leading to formation of inferior vena cava. So the vitelline vein forms the inferior vena cava. If you remember, in vitelline vein is from the yolk sac, so the yolk sac vitelline vein giving rise to the inferior vena cava. And now let us see about umbilical veins. So what they are going to form. So the right and left umbilical veins go to the liver. So even this right and left umbilical veins are also going to the liver, breaking down into sinusoids, and only the left part in that also is connecting to the sinus venosus, and in that also it is getting degenerated, and only the part of the liver is present, that is only the left umbilical vein is present. The distal part, 80% of this is oxygenated and passed by the special channels called as ductus venosus and reaches the inferior vena cava. So there is also sphincter associated with it during the uterine contraction, and the blood is prevented to move by this. So we are interested to know that vitelline vein forms our inferior vena cava, and right and left umbilical veins, they also pass by the liver, and they also form the sinusoids, and even their left part gets degenerated. Not right part gets degenerated, but the left umbilical vein persists, and this passes to the inferior vena cava by the help of ductus venosus. That's it. Now let us see the fibrotic cord, that is the round ligament of liver, or also called as ligamentum teres. After delivery, this takes place at the adult remnant of the left umbilical vein. So after the baby is born, the left umbilical vein remnant is nothing but a ligamentum teres, and the adult remnant of ductus venosus is become fibrotic, and it forms ligamentum venosum. Now let us move on to cardinal veins. So cardinal veins, once again let us revise them: anterior cardinal vein, posterior cardinal vein, common cardinal vein, right? So actually a channel is formed from left to right shunt, that is anterior cardinal vein becomes wider now, and it leads to formation of superior vena cava. So till now we understand how inferior vena cava is formed from our vitelline vein, and how the umbilical veins left part is only present, and it enters into inferior vena cava by ductus venosus. And now we are seeing that how superior vena cava is formed. It is mainly from the anterior cardinal vein, which gives rise to the superior vena cava, and also the common right cardinal vein is also involved. So right common cardinal vein along with anterior cardinal vein gives rise to formation of superior vena cava, and the right this shunt is giving rise to the left subclavian vein. So sometimes the left side of superior vena cava may also persist. Actually only right side should persist, but sometimes left side also persists, and the left superior vena cava doesn't persist also sometimes. So this left side, the blood flows to the right atrium, and the blood shunt is now from right to left. Actually it should be from left to right, but when the left superior vena cava is present, then the blood shunt from the right to left. Now let us see the supracardinal system. Here actually we have intercostal veins like 4, 5, 6, 7, and also we have thoracic veins associated with it. So actually they have anastomosis between them from left side to right side, that is hemizygous system, and only right side we have the azygous system. So this we can understand, like for example this is left side, this is right side. So they are saying the shunt from left to right side like this. This is called as hemizygous system, and only right side going to the inferior vena cava. This forms the azygous system of veins. So this is a supracardinal system. Actually, we know this cardinal systems are divided into, you can see here, supracardinal system, subcardinal system, and sacrocardinal system. So now we have understood about supracardinal system. Now let us move on to the subcardinal system. So in subcardinal system, the blood from the kidneys, gonads, suprarenal gland. Now the blood shunt here from left to right, left degenerate and the right becomes more larger, so that by the left renal shunt it enters into the inferior vena cava by the subcardinal part. Now let us move on to the sacrocardinal. It receives the blood from the lower limbs. It shunt between the left to right, again left degenerate, only right overdeveloped, and the common iliac part shunt is formed here. Now let us understand the fetal circulation. So first we'll see the normal circulation, next we'll see the changes in fetal circulation, and next we'll see the postnatal components. So actually, let us start our discussion. In fetus we have normally placenta, right? So in placenta we have chorionic villi, chorionic arteries. Mainly we focus on umbilical arteries and umbilical veins. So we know it's reverse in case of our baby, because umbilical veins carry oxygenated blood. About 86% or 85% of oxygenated blood is carried to the baby by means of umbilical veins. First they enter into the liver, they form the sinusoids there, and from the help of ductus venosus they enter into the inferior vena cava, and from the inferior vena cava it is converted to our right atrium. They enter the right atrium, and from right atrium they enter into the foramen ovale. We know foramen ovale is patent in a baby. So from foramen ovale it shunt, as the lungs are not still working, so the shunt should be present, and if the from foramen ovale actually the blood should now reach into the left atrium. But sometimes what happens is some of the blood may also go into the pulmonary arteries, and the aorta is connected there again by the ductus arteriosum. So even if it goes to pulmonary arteries, again it goes into the aorta by means of ductus arteriosum. But otherwise, if it goes into septum secundum and into the left atrium, the little blood we'll see about mixing later, and next and also left atrium. So this is again common: left atrium into left ventricle, left atrium into left ventricle into aorta, aorta vessels to the parts of the body, again into the umbilical arteries, mainly the internal iliac. From the internal iliac, internal iliac is also part of umbilical arteries, and get into the placenta. So this is how the fetal circulation takes place. So now let us see where the blood is getting mixed. Actually this is venous blood, means here it's oxygenated, but deoxygenated blood may also mix here in the lungs, and second time it may mix in the inferior vena cava because it is having mainly deoxygenated blood, and third time it mixes at the right atrium because even this is having deoxygenated blood, and fourth time at the left atrium, and fifth time at the ductus arteriosum. So this having 5 times the chances of mixing the blood with the deoxygenated one. So after birth what happens, the baby's own respiration starts. That is the first cry, the lungs get expanded and the vessels open, and the left atrium, this to left ventricle, aorta, ductus arteriosus. Ductus arteriosus is very sensitive to oxygen, bradykinin and prostaglandins. So whenever there is more oxygen, after birth we have more oxygen, more bradykinin and less PGE2, so that we can easily close the ductus arteriosus. But whenever there is low oxygen, that is before birth, the PGE2 is more open and the ductus arteriosus is open. So whenever the PGE2 and bradykinin and oxygen, PGE2 is low, bradykinin and oxygen are more, then the ductus arteriosus is closed. So next it enters into pulmonary artery, right atrium, as blood is low now due to the cutoff of umbilical. So now the right atrium have high blood pressure, so it pushes the septum primus to close. So actually now blood started shunting from the left atrium to the right atrium and shut the ovalis. So you can see when placenta is disconnected, umbilical vein and arteries are also getting constricted, and even our umbilical artery constricted, and ductus venosus is also constricted, and the umbilical vein constricted. Of course everything constrict whenever we cut out the this umbilical cord. So now let us see the post-natal remnants. Umbilical vein forms ligamentum teres, ductus venosus form ligamentum venosum, foramen ovale form fossa ovalis, ductus arteriosus form ligamentum arteriosum, and if it is open then patent, then the ductus arteriosus, lungs are overloaded and aorta have higher pressure and the murmur is heard. This where the systole is very high and the diastole is low. This murmur is called mesentery murmur. and the drug is given here is indomethacin, which inhibits the PGE2. We know whenever the PGE2 is inhibited, or whenever the PGE2 is low, then the ductus arteriosus closes, or also we can sometimes surgically remove it. So next, the umbilical artery remnant is the medial umbilical ligament, also superior vesical artery. Allantois, which forms the medial umbilical median. Here we have median umbilical ligament, but here we have medial umbilical medial. Here N median, allantois, LN median. So like this we can remember. So this is all about, like, you can understand everything about heart here. We'll also discuss the revision section where you can understand more, because these are all some extra points which are not needed for your exams, either NEET PG or next, or also in case of exams only some important points are required. So we'll discuss it in more detail and more clearly in our revision section. So don't forget to watch revision section for better understanding.